Hi, this is Jurgen Rasmussen. Welcome to the Provocative Hypnosis Vlog. I want to offer you some reflections on fear and anxiety. I've spent the last 25 years seeing clients professionally, and most of my clients during that time have been people who have had issues with fear and anxiety. So I want to offer some reflections on that particular topic. Now, I think the first thing that's useful to do is to distinguish between fear and anxiety. I don't think they're quite the same. Now, when we use the word fear, we have a tendency to assume that that's the same experience for everyone, or that anxiety is the same experience for everyone. There might be a lot of overlaps, but when I work with people and kind of drill down into the details of their experience, when people use these labels, they may refer to quite different subjective experiences. But the common denominator is that what they're experiencing is interpreted as if there is an inherent threat there. So I think in terms of fear, if someone suddenly holds a gun to your head, or you're losing control over your car on a icy road, or someone drives towards you at high speed, you're going to respond pretty instinctively and be pretty mobilized, some sort of flight, fight, or freeze sort of response. There's not a lot of room for fantasies and thinking. So I've interviewed a lot of people, or I've asked people, have you ever lost control of your car at high speed on icy roads, which would be common here in Norway? And most people say yes. When I asked them, what did you feel like right then and there when you lost control over the car? A lot of them say, I don't know, or nothing, or just a complete presence. Time slowed down. Um, the senses were very acute. Like there was only the road, and that's it. No anxiety. But when I asked them, what did you feel afterwards when you were like sitting in the ditch with the ignition off and stuff like that? Now, not all of them, or perhaps even most of them, but now quite a few would say, now I had the hyperventilating or the slight panic attack or the anxiety, the thoughts of, what if that trailer hit my kid, or what if this, what if that. So now they were anxious because nothing's happening. But no one really had that response during the acute kind of happening, right? So the trick to realize with anxiety is that when we're anxious, we're thinking, like we're imagining something. And that thing that we're imagining is per definition not being experienced. So anytime you have a what if thought, what if my heart stops? What if the plane crashes? What if I lose my job? What if my wife leaves me? What if my kid dies? At the moment of thinking that, you're not experiencing that. So the fact that you think it means that you're not experiencing it. So by noticing that, you can notice that any thought is a non-event. Any thought is a non-event, and you can't really solve a non-event because there's nothing to solve. So let's say that I came here with the time machine from 500 years ago, so I didn't understand film. And let's say that you took me to some sort of movie, right? You understand film, I don't. Let's say that the hero in the movie gets shot and is lying on the pavement. We might both feel something. I mean, that's why we're going to the movie, right? To be able to feel something. But to me, who fundamentally doesn't understand that the whole experience is generated by thought, it's not happening. To me, it's gonna look like something to solve, to run up and do CPR on the hero, or to chase the bad guy, or to barricade, or protect, or to do something, right? But for you who understands film, there's nothing to solve. You never run to the screen to do CPR. You never throw your knife at the bad guy. Because in the back of your mind, you know that the fact that you think it means that you're not experiencing it. So there's absolutely nothing to solve. It's a non-event. If anything ever got too intense for you, all you would have to do is to kind of lean back a little bit and connect with the fact that you're seeing a screen and that everything else is a thought-generated illusion. So seeing this truly is a major key to breaking the spell of anxiety. So make a distinction between something really acute happening and thinking. Make a distinction between these Darwinianly encoded acute fears from the ancient past, where this freeze, fight or flight system originated, which was probably very useful for very acute, specific dangers. And most of our anxieties, which are more psychological, they're more identity based, they're more based upon our self-concepts and what we think things mean. These are non-events. These are not solvable. So I had a student in my psychological illusion forum group who said, but what if you're in a dangerous situation? Like what about wasps? Wasps are real. Well, yeah, wasps are real, but fear or anxiety is not an inherent response. Meaning what really protects you is knowledge, not a particular emotional state. So if you're going to deal with something, it's one thing to deal with the perception or the object per se versus having to deal with a very intense emotional state and rumination on top of it. So if I have a lot of fantasies about something bad that could happen, I have very little attention left to what's actually occurring in this moment. And it's my ability to pick up on what's actually occurring in this moment that protects me. So the less rumination and strong emotional response I have, the less bandwidth is taken up. So even if there are wasps there, and I don't have any fear around wasps, it's knowing how to deal with things that is the important element. And in my experience, the people who deal the best with dangerous situations are people who have knowledge and know what to do, but who are able to remain relatively calm. The people who are phobic or having panic attacks or intense anxiety, their bandwidth is taken up with so much noise. Now remember, whether it's the wasp or the snake or the whatever, like at the moment of thinking it, you're not experiencing it. So that's a thought-generated illusion of sorts. Here's something, a final point I'd like to make. And again, some of our fears seem to be kind of Darwinianly encoded, and most of it is more psychological around concepts of identity and who we are and what things means and that sort of stuff. So back in the day, thousands of years ago, maybe 50,000 years ago or 100,000 years ago, our fear systems were probably pretty well detectors, as in we lived in pretty simple environments, I assume, where we had pretty specific threats. So I think during those days you could say that fear helped us survive or helped protect us. I think today for most of us, it's more useful to view fear as just an emotional state, just a particular flavor of thought, which presupposes you to project and interpret and see evidence of danger. So the idea today that fear protects us, I think, is mostly wrong. I'll give you a couple of examples from daily life. So if I walk with my 4-year-old son and we are in traffic and I hold his hand, I know that if we suddenly jump into the traffic, we're dead, like we're toast, we're run over by cars. So I don't do that. I hold his hand. But I have no fear whatsoever standing there. I'm alert. I'm aware of the situation. But it's not the fact that there's a strong fear response that stops me from leaping into the street. And hadn't it been for that fear response, I would have leapt into the street. I don't leap into the street because I know not to do that. But I don't need a fear response. I need to care, right? Or if I come home and my wife is making dinner and the stoves are hot, I don't put my hands in the wintertime on the stoves to heat them. Like, I don't do that because I know that that would result in severe burns and danger and a lot of pain. So I don't do that. But I don't have any fear. It's not like the closer I get to the stoves, the more fear I feel. And hadn't it been for the intense fear, I would have put my hands on the stoves. It doesn't work like that at all. So the idea that fear protects us, I think, is for the most part a myth. Might be something to it in some acute danger situations, or being able to pick up on subtle things, like don't get into the elevator with that guy, like a subtle type signal. But for the most part, I think that the idea that fear tells us something about something out there necessarily, and that it protects us, is a myth of sorts. What seems to protect us is knowledge. Knowledge, and to be able to be truly present. And if your fear response helps you to be completely present with something, great. But a lot of people's fear responses seem to fill them with very strong body sensations and a lot of rumination, which again takes up a lot of bandwidth. So and something else too, this old fear system does not at all seem to be well calibrated. So I remember reading, when was this, back in 2017 or 2018, about the 10 most common causes of death, and then the 10 things that people were the most afraid of. There was no overlap. The only thing that was overlap was that influenza and tuberculosis was the 8th highest cause of death, and that the fear of germs and bacteria and viruses was on the top 10 list. But outside of that, there was no correlation between what was actually dangerous and what people were fearing. So for example, today, we know a lot about the dangers of sugar. Like, eating sugar, it truly is poison, right? Anyone who's read up a bit on sugar and nutrition knows that. But in 25 years now, I have never, not once, I swear to you, knock on wood, I've never had one client say, look, Jurgen, I'm at the supermarket, I'm calm, and then I move towards the chocolates, right? And I see the Snickers bar, and the panic attack hits me, the intense fear response, and it freezes me in my tracks. And hadn't it been for that intense fear response, I would have just assaulted the Snickers. Like, not one client, not once, ever. Like, I get clients who are terrified of stopping smoking, even though the cigarettes are killing them, because they have this idea, this thought that they're losing their best friend, or perhaps the only reliable source of joy that they have. So even if the fear system was kind of calibrated back in the day, assumedly, there's a very little reason to think that old GPS has much relevance for the streets that you're driving in the modern environment. So I I hope that this was food for thought. Let me give you a final example. So this past summer, I was home alone, which often isn't a good idea, and I made some food in the middle of the night, some Indian food, some papadums. I've quit eating that stuff since then, but I was, and the plate took on fire. So there was a little bit of fire, and I was able to stop that pretty quickly, and the fire alarms, were going crazy. I didn't feel much. I mean, I was mobilized. I was completely present. I just did what I had to do. Now, I had forgotten that if I don't call the security company, they immediately, contact the fire department. So like 10, I live on top of the hill, so like 10 minutes later, like the fire trucks were up there and the guys were out there with their hoses, and I had to go out there in my pink bathing shorts and kind of go, no, it's just me making papadums, everything's fine. But then an hour or so later, as I was going to sleep, the fire thought emerged. What if the kids were home? What if I hadn't detected it in time? This is a non-event. This isn't happening. The fact that I think it means I'm not experiencing it. So the mantra appearing in my mind was just not happening. Nothing to solve. Most of us spend a lot of our waking hours trying to solve non-events as if they're events. And it's driving us absolutely bonkers. And you don't have to do it. Once it doesn't make sense to do it, you'll stop doing it. So anyways, I hope this little rant here was useful. If you'd like to make some changes, you can contact me at provocativehypnosis.com. I'm doing a seminar titled No Self, No Problem, about penetrating the self-illusion and its applications to change work on March 19th and 20th. Go to provocativehypnosis.com on the seminar page. Hope to see you there. Thanks for listening.